So I went away last weekend, and as a result, when I got back, despite having multi-packs of lateral flow tests piled up on my bedroom floor because people have handed them to me in the street, I've been sent them by the government, they are available for free from any pharmacy around here, I was forced to spend £22 on a single lateral flow test so that I could find out that, surprise, surprise, I don't have COVID, which, since I'm triple vaccinated and I've had a round of Delta relatively recently, and I was staying in a place that has a considerably lower infection rate than the UK does, comes as no big shock. But it brings to my attention that the way that testing is happening in the UK right now is in need of a complete overhaul. So first of all, these travel COVID tests are an absolute scam. There is absolutely no need to charge £22 for a single lateral flow test. I mean, if they were really that expensive, the government would not be handing them out for free. And why is it that you can go to the companies that sell them to you for £22 and buy them for £5 if they're not official travel ones, even though it's exactly the same test working in exactly the same way? What it is that the government has allowed its cronies and its mates and companies that kick back funds to themselves and to the Conservative Party onto Matt Hancock's VIP list and allowed them priority access to being the suppliers for these things. And they understand that it is a monopoly and they can basically bandy together as a cartel and charge whatever they like. Secondly, given how much money these companies are making, they could think about other external factors as well, like in particular the environment, because lots of us around the UK are now testing very regularly. And I got my one £22 lateral flow test. This is what they sent me. So this is a sheet of instructions. A link to a website would have been quite sufficient. Here is another copy of the same set of instructions, but this time it's just on slightly glossier paper with some pictures in case you didn't know what sticking a thing up your nose looked like. Here is the same set of instructions, but now they're in German, as though said website couldn't just have a little German flag and a click here. I think most people know how to do these things now, you know, without checking, but even if you wrote in small letters, please note ours are a bit weird, check the website. The actual test itself comes in a sachet like this. I guess it needs to be kept dry, so there's a little bit of silica gel in there. It could be done smaller at very, very least, and I'm not entirely convinced that it wouldn't be worth the risk of not keeping it entirely dry in return for using slightly less of these. Then you've got the actual thing itself, which the only important bit is a tiny little strip of cardboard in the middle of there. The rest is this plastic packaging to tell you how it works, and so you can see it, and at very least that should be recyclable. You should be able to just like send those back to the company and you know, they should be able to open it and reset it, just rinse it out and reset it. It shouldn't be necessary to throw this much plastic away, or if they really, really must, they should be able to make it smaller or ideally out of cardboard. And then you've got the little plastic waste bag. Well, I mean, I understand that we're trying to avoid infection from COVID, but the stuff in here is no more infectious than when I blow my nose and throw it in the bin. And I don't feel the need to whack on a hazmat suit and a pair of marigolds and, you know, bleach everything before I throw things away. It should just say, throw it away carefully in the bottom of your bin. Don't let it spill out or whatever, because it might have COVID on it. Although if it has got COVID on it, you've got COVID. So like, what are we so worried about? And of course, within that is the swab itself. And after all these years of very carefully making sure that I only buy cotton buds which have a cardboard stick in there, there we go. There is a plastic stick, exactly the sort of thing that I've been told is damaging to sea life and is going to get stuck, you know, like plastic straws do in, you know, turtles and dolphins and other important animals' guts and blowholes and so on. And the whole thing is in a cardboard box which could be a fraction of the size if we simply got rid of 2/3 of this rubbish. It just requires a level of competence. We should also be thinking about who exactly we are testing and what we are doing about the results of those tests. Scientifically, we know that people who are fully vaccinated are infectious for a much shorter period of time. In fact, we think they're infectious for about half as long. So let's do that first of all. Let's say if you do test positive and you are unvaccinated, you isolate for 10 days. And if you're vaccinated, you isolate for 5 days. That's what the science says is reasonable. It makes people more likely to isolate because 5 days is a much more achievable amount of time to isolate. and it shows people the benefits of vaccination, and it encourages people to get vaccinated without without forcing them to do so, but by basing it on the science and doing what is actually fair and safe. And we should be saying for loads and loads of things around the country, if you're not vaccinated, you need to be tested every day, every couple of days, depending on the severity of the situation. People should be using these tests more and more and more, but they should be available for free, including if you've travelled, because the idea that somebody who's, you know, been out of the country for a few days is somehow living the life of luxury. I wish, but, you know, I'm glad to say I can still afford to occasionally do something nice with my weekend. We shouldn't be penalising those people further. We should just be saying, get tested. Everybody get tested regularly, especially if you're not vaccinated, because that's how we actually can set out to avoid a winter lockdown, and that's how we can actually make our freedoms go a little bit further. Testing, wearing masks, they're not big inconveniences. Not like having a massive lockdown, and not like being ill and watching your loved ones suffering and potentially dying. All that requires to happen is for the government to look at it and make sensible, intelligent decisions, the sort of thing that I can come up with, even though I'm absolutely ruddy knackered right now, as you can probably see, because my heating doesn't work and I have a circulatory disorder and I don't sleep very well without my heating working, and when I can't even get a hot bath to warm up. And yet I can still do better than Boris Johnson can on allegedly a full night's sleep, or unless there's some other reason why his hair constantly looks like he's just woken up in a Van de Graaff generator. It is straightforward and simple, and the only reason they're not doing it is because they don't want to disband the cartel that is stuffing money into their back pockets. And we're having a debate in Parliament about corruption right now, and they're not even addressing this stuff. The debate about corruption is honestly a direct distraction from all the massive, massive scale amounts of corruption, and COVID testing is just one tiny corner of that, but it's quite important. You know, because the whole people dying and stuff. See you next week when I'm not quite so exhausted.